this proof is going to get the thinking through treatment. Whatever strategy you're using, always take stock, identify main operators, look for matching patterns. But when we're thinking through, I'd really recommend actually just saying the premises out loud to yourself. In premise 1, we've got, if n and s, then t. If both n and s happen, then so does t. The second premise is telling us that if s or l, if either s or l happens, or if either s or l is true, then s and n happen. Okay, wait a minute. When we look at the expressions, we don't really have a match, right? The antecedent in line 1 and the consequent of line 2 are reversed, and that makes them not a perfect match. But if we think about what they mean, n and s and n, they mean the same thing. In other words, we do have, at least in content, we do have a matching antecedent and consequent. Now, again, it's not HS yet because we don't have that perfect match. But in terms of thinking through, we know that these two premises together give us some more information. Specifically, they give us that if either S or L, then T is going to be true as well. In other words, logically, like underlying thought process-wise, there is a piece of chain reasoning going on here, or HS. Fair enough, it's not something that we can write down yet because we don't have it exactly. Well, what else do we have? We have one more premise. Well, 3 tells us that it is not the case that T. Okay, wait a minute. If it's not the case that T, but from 1 and 2 we know that if S or L then T, then don't we also know that it is not the case that S or L? In other words, we've got modus tollens going on here. And whether by name or not specifically, the reasoning pattern is that we are denying the consequent. We're saying in line 3 that the consequent or the necessary condition is not happening. And when you lack the necessary condition, then the antecedent is going to have to also be false. Well, it is not the case that S or L is really a handful, and we don't usually talk like that. In fact, if it's not the case that S or L, usually what we actually say is that neither S nor L. But at this point, the argument is making a whole lot of sense. The logic behind premises 1 and 2 in any case tells us that if S or L, then T. But the third premise is telling us that T does not happen, or that T is false. And if that's true, then we know that neither S nor L. Well, wait a minute. If neither S nor L, then of course not L, right? Neither S nor L is neither one happens. Normally when you think through an argument, you do start to identify rule patterns. Now, is this exactly our proof? Absolutely not. I mean, we already saw with HS how we're going to have to do something before we actually use HS. There's, I didn't even cite any rules down here. We'll get there. But what thinking through does for you is that it gives you a direction for the proof. We want to use HS on lines 1 and 2, but the holdup, as we saw before, was that the antecedent of the one conditional is not a perfect match for the antecedent of the second conditional. However, we know from thinking it through that the sentence, the antecedent and the consequent, they mean the same thing. Whenever you have the right meaning but the wrong expression, that's a sign that probably there's a replacement rule or rules that are going to help you out here. And of course the one that we want is COM. Now it doesn't matter whether you COM line 1 or line 2, you just need to COM one of them, because doing that gives us what we want for hypothetical syllogism. We now have that exact match of the antecedent of one conditional matching with the consequent of the other conditional. The matching bits cancel out. That's not what's happening logically, but you do skip them when you write the new formula. And we have gotten this far in our thought process. Now the next part in our thought process was going to be modus tollens. In this case, we do have exactly what we need for modus tollens. We've got matching consequence with a negation in front of the consequent when it's on a line by itself, and that allows us to derive the antecedent with the negation in front of it. And that's going to be 3 and 5 modus tollens. Okay, and very close to the home stretch now. When we were thinking through, we recognized that it is not the case that S or L was equivalent to neither S nor L. That is, of course, the De Morgan's transformations. It is the triple switch. The left-hand side gets a negation stuck in front of it. The wedge gets turned into a dot, and the right-hand side also gets a negation stuck in front of it. And of course, not L follows from the conjunction not S and not L by simplification. And before you're done, always double check each of your rules. It's really easy to sort of make a mistake or just get a little misled even, get a little too perhaps rambunctious with what you think you're seeing. Double check the rules. Make sure that each line is legal, but here's your proof.